The primitive, short-lived humans laughed in the face of death, leaving the long-lived Arcturians in awe of their insanely risky military tactics that no sane centuries-old soldier would ever dare attempt. "This plan of yours is suicide, Captain Reyes," Commander Voller said, his facial tentacles twitching in disbelief. "Your squad would be slaughtered." Captain Darren Reyes, seasoned strategist of the human space forces, stood his ground on the bridge of the Arcturian command ship. He'd been assigned to help defend their critical mining colony from relentless enemy attacks. The Arcturians clearly outclassed humans technologically, but Reyes saw their tactical planning was too rigid, inflexible. "With all due respect, sir, if we dispatch our main forces to guard the supply lines like you suggest, we leave the colony defenseless," Reyes countered. "The enemy already outnumbers us 3-1. "You do not understand, human," Voller said dismissively. "We Arcturians live for centuries. To lose even one soldier is to lose hundreds of years of knowledge and experience. We cannot take such risks. Though your species' reckless nature is unsurprising given your pitifully short lifespans." Reyes bit back a snarky retort. He needed to convince them to try something bolder, or the colony was doomed. Digging through the Arcturian military archives, he found the root of their risk-averse tactics. The enemy had similar longevity. They threw hordes of disposable conscripts at targets, grinding down the more conservative Arcturians in wars of attrition. But humans, with their high birth rates and rapid adaptability, could alter those cold equations. As the enemy fleet closed in and alarms blared across the ship, Reyes pitched a daring plan to Voller and the Arcturian captains: send elite human infantry to raid the enemy's overextended supply trains, forcing them to split their attack. "You would sacrifice your own soldiers?" Voller asked, shocked. "This is an unacceptable loss of life for temporary tactical gain. I cannot condone such a thing." "My soldiers and I knowingly put our lives on the line to complete the mission," Reyes said firmly. "If we don't act now, the colony will fall. We're dead either way. I'd rather die fighting." Voller saw the human's steely resolve and reluctantly agreed. It was this unconventional strategy, or certain defeat. As the human marine fire teams armed up and boarded their drop shuttles, the Arcturians watched with almost parental concern, certain these poor, naive primitives with their paltry double-digit lifespans were charging into the grinding jaws of death itself. As the stealth shuttles sliced through the inky void, Reyes felt the familiar rush of adrenaline surge through his veins. This was what he lived for, the thrill of the mission, the chance to make a difference. He glanced around at his squad, their faces etched with unwavering perseverance. They knew the stakes, and they were ready to do whatever it took. The shuttles docked silently at the enemy supply depot, and Reyes led his team out into the cavernous hangar bay. The place was crawling with alien guards, their bulky frames and chitinous armor a stark contrast to the sleek, compact humans. But Reyes had handpicked his soldiers for their agility and stealth, and they slipped past the patrols like ghosts. Once inside the depot's main storage area, they got to work. Reyes watched as his team fanned out, planting explosive charges at key structural points and munitions stockpiles. The Arcturian intel had been spot on. This place was a goldmine of enemy supplies. Taking it out would be a major blow to their offensive capabilities. Just as they were finishing up, all hell broke loose. An enemy patrol had stumbled upon them, and the air was suddenly filled with the sizzling crackle of plasma fire. Reyes barked orders to his team, and they dove for cover behind crates and machinery. It was a brutal, close-quarters fight. The aliens had numbers on their side, but the humans had speed and skill. Reyes saw one of his men go down, a sizzling hole burned through his chest, but there was no time to mourn. He sighted down his rifle and put a neat hole through an alien's eye, then another. All around him, his team was doing the same, picking off enemies with precise shots, using their smaller size to outmaneuver the lumbering aliens. Reyes himself was a blur of motion, his rifle spitting death with every squeeze of the trigger. Finally, the last alien fell, and an eerie silence descended over the depot. Reyes keyed his comm. "Alpha Squad, Sound off. One by one, his team checked in. They had taken casualties, but they were still in the fight. Reyes nodded grimly. All teams, status report. The other insertion teams reported in quick succession. They had all hit their targets: secondary supply lines, communication hubs, power generators. The enemy's logistical network was in shambles. Reyes allowed himself a tight smile. Copy that. Alpha Squad, prep for exfil. It's time to blow this place to hell. He thumbed the detonator, and the world turned white. The explosions ripped through the depot like a hungry beast, consuming everything in their path. Crates of munitions cooked off, sending plumes of fire and shrapnel rocketing into the air. The structural charges did their job too. Load-bearing columns crumpled like tin foil, bringing the roof down in a cascade of twisted metal. As the dust settled, Reyes and his team emerged from the rubble, battered but alive. The enemy depot was nothing more than a smoking crater, its vital supplies reduced to ash and slag. In orbit high above, Commander Voller watched the destruction unfold with a mix of awe and trepidation. The humans had done it. They had crippled the enemy's ability to sustain their assault on the mining colony. It was a victory, but at what cost? Reyes and his team were extracted by the waiting stealth shuttles, whisked away to the safety of the Arcturian command ship. As they disembarked, the Arcturians looked upon them with a newfound respect, and perhaps a hint of fear. These humans, with their reckless tactics and disregard for their own lives, were a force to be reckoned with. In the command center, Reyes stood before Voller, his armor still smeared with soot and alien blood. The Arcturian commander gazed at him with inscrutable eyes. "Your plan worked, Captain Reyes," Voller said finally, his voice tight. "The enemy has been forced to retreat and regroup. The colony is safe, for now." Reyes nodded wearily. "We did what had to be done, sir." "Indeed." Voller's facial tentacles twitched, betraying his unease. "Your species' bravery is commendable, if foolhardy. I shudder to think what you could accomplish if you had our level of technology." Reyes met the alien's gaze unflinchingly. "Technology is important, Commander, but it's not everything. Sometimes all you need is a little human ingenuity and a lot of guts." Volar made a sound that might have been a laugh or a scoff. "Perhaps you are right, Captain. But this war is not nearly finished. The enemy will return, and we must be ready." Reyes straightened his shoulders, ignoring the ache of his bruised ribs. "We'll be ready, sir. Together we'll find a way to beat them, whatever it takes." The Arcturian commander regarded him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you, Captain Reyes. Gods help us all. But I believe you." The taste of victory was still fresh when Reyes and Voller reconvened in the command center. Maps and tactical displays flickered around them as they pored over the enemy's weakened positions. "We've got them on the ropes," Reyes said, his eyes gleaming with the possibility of a decisive blow. "Now's our chance to end this." Volar's facial tentacles rippled with unease. "You propose we press the attack after such losses?" "Exactly," Reyes nodded. "They won't expect it. Your fleet can hammer them from orbit while my team slip in and dismantle their command structure from the inside." Hours of heated debate followed as they hashed out the details. Reyes hand-selected his strike teams, grizzled veterans who'd stared death in the face more times than they could count. They geared up with cutting-edge stealth tech and close-quarters weaponry that packed a nasty punch in tight spaces. As the dropships plummeted through the atmosphere, Reyes felt that familiar surge of adrenaline. The teams hit the ground running, fanning out to their assigned targets. Plasma fire lit up the night as they fought tooth and nail for every inch. "Bravo, Team Sitrep," Reyes barked into his comm as he led Alpha towards the main comms array. "Central bunker secured, but we're down to half strength," came the grim reply. Similar reports flooded in. Objectives taken, but at a brutal cost. Reyes grit his teeth and pushed on. They had to make this count. Just as the human forces secured their final targets, the sky erupted with blinding light. The Arcturian fleet opened up, raining hellfire on the enemy's positions. The bombardment was surgical and devastating, shattering defensive emplacements and sending the alien troops into disarray. Reyes seized the moment. All teams converge on the central command post. This ends now. They slipped into maintenance tunnels barely large enough to crawl through, emerging behind enemy lines. Alien security patrols stomped by overhead, oblivious to the humans in their midst. The command bunker loomed before them, a fortress of steel and alien alloys. Reyes took a deep breath, checked his weapon, and gave the signal. They burst into the command center like demons from hell. The alien commanders barely had time to react before the humans were upon them. It was chaos, muzzle flashes, the screech of alien weaponry, and the meaty thud of hand-to-hand combat. Reyes ducked under a swipe from an alien's clawed hand, bringing his rifle up in a vicious swing that caved in its chitinous skull. To his left, Sergeant Chen was a whirlwind, her combat knife flashing as she carved through the alien guards. The firefight seemed to stretch on for an eternity, but in reality, it was over in minutes. Reyes stood panting, surrounded by the broken bodies of the alien command staff. The few survivors huddled in a corner, their alien features twisted in what he hoped was an expression of surrender. One of the alien leaders hobbled forward, clutching a sparking device. It jabbed at the controls, and a moment later, Reyes's comm crackled to life with the sound of alien transmissions, a full, unconditional surrender. As word spread, the mining colony erupted in celebration. Humans and Arcturians alike poured into the streets, embracing each other in the euphoria of survival and victory. On the command ship, Voller regarded Reyes with a mix of admiration and unease. "Your tactics were unorthodox, Captain, but effective." Reyes nodded, feeling the weight of their losses. "We do what we must to survive, Commander. It's the human way." As the festivities continued around them, both leaders found themselves lost in thought. Reyes marveled at humanity's capacity to push through impossible odds, to seize victory from the jaws of defeat. Volar, for his part, couldn't shake a growing sense of disquiet. These humans, with their brief lifespans and reckless courage, had accomplished in days what his people might have spent years debating. It was a sobering realization, one that left him wondering what other surprises these short-lived aliens might have in store for the galaxy. The euphoria of victory was short-lived. As the dust settled, tension simmered between Captain Reyes and Commander Voller in the Arcturian Command Center. "Your strike teams need to be integrated more closely into our command structure," Voller insisted, his facial tentacles twitching with agitation. "We can't have rogue human elements running amok in our operations." Reyes planted his feet and crossed his arms. "With all due respect, Commander, that's not gonna fly. My men's strength is their ability to think on their feet and take calculated risks. We lose that if you micromanage us." Volar's eyes narrowed. "And such unbridled independence could jeopardize our long-term strategies. We're fighting a war here, Captain, not indulging in human bravado." "Bravado?" Reyes scoffed. "Our bravado is what turned the tide of that last battle. While your forces were busy analyzing every possible outcome, we got the job done." The debate raged on, voices rising as neither side budged. It was clear this went beyond mere tactical disagreements. It cut to the core of their species' differences. The Arcturians, with their centuries-long lifespans, favored cautious, meticulous planning. Humans, acutely aware of their fleeting existence, embraced bold action and improvisation. Finally, after hours of heated discussion, a compromise was reached. Volar granted Reyes significant autonomy for special operations, with the caveat that they coordinate with Arcturian High Command. Wasting no time, Reyes assembled an elite task force. They pored over intelligence reports, studying schematics of a heavily fortified enemy outpost rumored to be developing a terrifying new weapon. Under the cover of darkness, stealth dropships sliced through the atmosphere. Reyes and his team touched down silently, their black combat suits blending into the shadows. They moved with practiced precision, evading patrols and slipping past automated defenses. Inside the facility, they split into smaller teams. Reyes led the charge to the main data hub, while others planted charges at key structural points. The humans moved like ghosts, neutralizing guards with ruthless efficiency. Sergeant Chen cracked the encryption on a secure terminal, downloading terabytes of classified data. "Got it, Captain," she whispered. "This intel is going to blow their minds back at HQ." Reyes nodded, planting the final explosive charge. "Good work. All teams prepare for exfil. We're Oscar Mike in 5. That's when everything went sideways. A premature detonation rocked the facility, claxons blaring as their presence was exposed. Reyes cursed, barking into his comm. "All teams, aboard exfil. We are compromised. Fall back to extraction point Bravo." They fought their way through corridors swarming with enemy troops, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. Their planned escape route was cut off, forcing them deeper into the bowels of the facility. "New plan," Reyes shouted over the din of battle. "We're punching through to the maintenance tunnels. Use your size to your advantage." The humans blasted their way down, using breaching charges to create new paths where none existed. They emerged into a labyrinth of cramped service tunnels barely tall enough to stand in. Chen, Rodriguez set up kill zones at these junctions, Reyes ordered, marking positions on their HUDs. "Everyone else, we're playing cat and mouse. Hit and fade people. Make every shot count." For hours, they led the enemy on a deadly chase through the tunnels. The humans used their smaller size to slip through tight spaces, ambushing their larger foes in choke points and disappearing before reinforcements arrived. But the cost was high. One by one, Reyes watched his soldiers fall. Chen took a plasma bolt to the leg, cauterizing the wound herself and fighting on. Rodriguez caught shrapnel from a grenade, his visor cracked and leaking atmosphere. As their ammo ran critically low, Reyes prepared for a final stand. That's when the world shook around them. Arcturian orbital strikes hammered the facility above, guided by the humans' transponder signals. In the aftermath, as medics treated the survivors, Reyes stood before Commander Voller. The Arcturian's expression was unreadable. "Your tactics were reckless, Captain," Voller said quietly. "You needlessly endangered your soldiers." Reyes met his gaze unflinchingly. "We got the job done, Commander. That data and the damage we did to their facility could turn this whole war around." Vollar's tentacles writhed in agitation. "At what cost, human? How many lives are you willing to throw away for a tactical advantage?" "As many as it takes," Reyes replied without hesitation. "Because if we lose this war, none of us will have lives left to lose." The two leaders stared at each other, the gulf between their philosophies yawning wide. It was clear that this victory had opened new rifts, between caution and daring, between preservation and sacrifice. As the war raged on, these fundamental differences would only grow more pronounced. The fragile alliance between humans and Arcturians crumbled in the wake of their latest victory. As the dust settled, Captain Reyes found himself standing before Commander Voller once again, this time in a hastily assembled war room on the front lines. "This is madness, Captain." Voller's voice carried a note of genuine concern. "Your forces are depleted, and this strike on the enemy command center is tantamount to suicide." Reyes leaned over the holographic display, studying the heavily fortified alien stronghold. "With respect, Commander, we don't have a choice. If we don't take out their command and control, your fleet's offensive will be torn to shreds." "And what of your lives?" Voller's facial tentacles writhed in agitation. "You humans are irreplaceable assets. We cannot afford to lose you." Reyes looked up, his eyes hard. "We're soldiers, Voller. This is what we signed up for." As the Arcturian fleet gathered in orbit, Reyes briefed his surviving troops. Their faces were gaunt, eyes sunken from weeks of brutal combat, but a fire still burned within them. "I won't lie to you," Reyes said, his voice carrying across the dropship bay. "This mission is as bad as it gets. But if we pull this off, we give our allies a fighting chance. We give humanity a future." The battle erupted in a maelstrom of plasma fire and explosions. Reyes led the charge, his boots pounding across scorched earth as enemy rounds screamed past. To his left, Private Cooper stumbled, a plasma bolt searing through his leg. Reyes grabbed him by the collar, dragging him behind a shattered wall. "Medic!" Reyes bellowed, returning fire with his pulse rifle. The acrid stench of ozone and burning flesh filled the air as more of his soldiers fell. They pushed forward relentlessly, using breaching charges to blast through defensive barriers. Inside the command center, the fighting devolved into a nightmarish close-quarters brawl. Reyes drove his combat knife into an alien's eye socket, the creature's ichor splattering across his visor. Nearby, Sergeant Chen wielded a captured alien weapon, its molecular disintegration beam reducing enemy combatants to clouds of screaming atoms. As they fought their way deeper, a stray plasma bolt struck Reyes's suit, shattering his faceplate. He gasped, the toxic atmosphere burning his lungs. Every breath was agony as he staggered forward, his body rapidly breaking down. With the last of his strength, Reyes reached the inner sanctum. His vision blurring, he slammed his hand down on the detonator. The world erupted in fire and thunder as the charges obliterated the command center. In the smoldering aftermath, Commander Voller moved among the ruins. He found Reyes's body, blackened and twisted, still clutching the detonator. The Arcturian stood silent, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of human sacrifice. Back on his command ship, Voller received the intercepted enemy transmission. His blood ran cold as he learned of the bioweapon aimed at his homeworld. The enormity of the threat crashed over him like a tidal wave. Volar stared out at the stars, Captain Reyes's final words echoing in his mind. The fate of two worlds now rested on his shoulders. With a heavy heart, he reached for the comm panel, prepared to make the hardest decision of his long life.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.